Right, I will call us to order. Welcome to our September 10th, 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Education. We're excited tonight because it's the first meeting that we are having of the school year, the new school year. Before we get started though, you'll all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much for that. I will turn it over to our secretary, Ms. Stewart, please, for a roll call.
All right. President Wilson.
I'm here.
Vice President McIntyre.
I'm here. Hello.
Treasurer Campbell-Voitel.
I'm here.
Trustee Mazurek is absent. Trustee Meyer.
Here.
Trustee Prescott.
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
And myself, Secretary Stewart, here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we are joined tonight by our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. R.J. Weber. Hello. The Central Office Leadership Team here in front. We are also, I want to acknowledge our candidates for school board. I'll do that every meeting to the extent folks are here. We have Ron Frazier, Jenna Mabry, I see, and Lisa McIntyre. So welcome them as well. And welcome everyone. We're excited tonight. We have a lot of great stuff on our agenda, but before we get rolling, let's do an adoption of our agenda. First, please, I'll turn it over to our Vice President, Ms. McIntyre.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to bring forth motion 21 that the agenda be adopted as presented. Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. The agenda looks good to me. Any questions? Look good to everyone else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our agenda passes, and that brings us to number 5 on our agenda. Again, I'll turn it over to our Vice President for our consent resolutions.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 22 that the board accept the consent agenda items for approval as presented. This includes 5A, minutes of the August 27th, 2024 Board of Education meeting. B, overnight and or out-of-state field trip requests, including B1, NHS Boys Cross Country Invitational in Shelbyville, Indiana on September 20th, 2024. B2, NHS Boys Tennis State Tournament in Grand Rapids, Michigan from October 17th to the 19th, 2024. 5B3, Hillside Middle School 6th grade trip to Camp Kopnaconic in Fenton, Michigan from October 23rd to the 25th, 2024. 5C, Committee of the Whole Board Workshop on October 1 at Old Village School for Superintendent Rater Reliability Training through Michigan Association of School Boards. 5D, at a special call Board of Education meeting on September 17th, 2024 at 6:30 and move the Committee of the Whole to 7 p.m. at Old Village School. 5E, approval of Amanda Ordaz to the Wayne Risa Parent Advisory Committee. 5F, bill warrants totaling $5,035,829.16. And I believe that's it. Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented, again by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. As our Vice President just read, these are items like minutes from previous board meetings, a lot of great field trips and athletic events, some meetings that we are planning on the horizon. Bill warrants and things. These, for folks in the audience, these are items that we have vetted, reviewed in the past in subcommittees. We've had a chance to look at ahead of this meeting, and usually we don't discuss them in any sort of detail. Before we vote on this, any questions about anything on our consent resolutions?
Just a question.
Comments? Yeah, for sure.
Yes, thank you. The inter-rater reliability, did anybody have a sense, and I hope I didn't miss this, of what we should plan for length of that meeting? Is that going to be the only item? And then, I thought it was, and then any sense?
I don't know, but it's there actually. It's going to be like we'd have to be here in an open meeting, but it is going to be through a virtual setting. We're not going to have a trainer in the room, but I do think it's probably about 2 hours.
Okay, good to know.
October 1, all right.
Thank you.
And then I don't have a question, just a general comment about the Hillside Middle School 6th grade camp.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just really happy that Hillside does this, and it's a great opportunity for 6th graders. They mix elementary schools so that you get to meet kids from other elementary schools, and I think it's a great program. Mm-hmm. So excited to see that it continues. Yeah.
All right, good comments. Anything else? All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our consent resolutions pass. Thank you. That brings us to number 6 on our agenda by my count, and that would be our communications. Ms. Stewart, please.
Okay, we've received communications through our Board of Education email address, npsboe@northvilleschools.org, as well as the Northville Youth Network Program report for the summer months, June through August.
NYN report that I was really surprised by those numbers, that the summer numbers were double what they typically see. And I reached out to Amy Prevost just to kind of gut check about that. And she gave a lot of information that I think would be really helpful for the board to understand a little bit more in depth. Some of the things that they're seeing, I asked for an age breakout, right? That we're thinking about how do we support mental health? How do we support substance use or abuse at this age? And wondering, where are more of the numbers coming from? More of the kids that are struggling coming from? She identified that at middle school, for youth assistance program, those are police and school referrals. Since January, they've had 27. For case management, that's more complex behavioral health issues at the middle school level, they've gotten, I believe, 8. And then for just resource referrals, parents looking for help at the middle school level, they've gotten 7. Then at the high school, similar referrals for the youth assistance program, they've had 27, 8 case management, and 14 resource referrals. And those are the ones that are coming to the surface, right? That I can't guesstimate what percentage would be coming to the surface, but it's pretty clear to me that there is a need. The other thing that she highlighted that wasn't part of that report was the acuity in terms of behavioral health struggles that they're seeing at the elementary level. So she broke that out for me, that there's been 1 referral for the youth assistance program from police or school, 13 referrals for case management. So again, that's complex behavioral health issues, and then 4 parents looking for some connection to other social service support.
I'm sorry, what was the behavioral number on
Behavioral number for elementary was 13.
13? Okay.
So we're in September, right? That we are just getting back to school. So curious to see what we see in terms of numbers rising. Highly doubt they'll go down. I just really want to highlight the summer, right? That summer we think of as a time of kids relaxing and having fun, and parents, are asking for help. Kids are finding themselves in trouble. So just want us to be aware of that as we're continuing our dialogue around how do we address these really important needs that help our kids be successful in school.
Right. I think to complement that really important analysis that you drew out of your discussion with Amy, I appreciate knowing those numbers. What caught my attention was the reference to the substance use disorders that they're seeing, and that it really caused them. They made some adjustments. They had to refocus one of their group interventions, and then they also had to look for additional resources that they really felt like they had some but not sufficient. And so then they were able to establish a partnership in Oakland County, who was willing to come and service both our Oakland County part of our district, but also our Wayne County kids too, which was really valuable because oftentimes those county boundaries are hard stops for nonprofits. So, but I am concerned about the substance use disorders that they're seeing, and kudos to NYN for going out and finding additional resources to respond to the needs.
The other thing that was highlighted for me too was a neighboring district, not an immediate neighbor, but they are seeking some information from NYN as far as how are they implementing these programs? How is NYN reaching out to the community and offering these services? And Amy really underscored that Northville Youth Network is one of the only community partner agencies in the state that's doing this kind of work. So I think we are really fortunate, and I keep thinking about how can we support them? How can we continue our strong partnership with them? What will that look like? That the need isn't, it's continuing to grow, and we have an opportunity here to intervene, early intervention, support, I wonder about prevention. I know we're doing a lot with our SEL work, MTSS support, and all of those layers of support. But the need is great.
It is great.
I'll just add, that's a great segue into a point that I wanted to make later, but I'll make it now. I mean, you hear the need. We've heard about the need for this, and I think we have had pretty unanimous, from the public heard that there is a need and a want and desire here to do something additional for student health, mental well-being, and that sort of thing. And we're actually talking next week at our committee of the whole, September 17th, about some options that might be available to us in terms of using the 31AA or other money that we've already been granted to use toward potentially things like this, whether it's space somewhere in our district for all sorts of things that could include partnerships like you're talking about. So that's September 17th in our committee of the whole. You'll see that on the agenda.
Great.
Lisa, thank you for, elucidating that. It was, I believe, May 16th of 2023 that I did a comprehensive report on many of those issues. President Wilson, thank you for letting folks know that we have a 31AA allocation that we need to make some decisions on. That money goes away in September of 25. And so it'll be a very laser focused approach to simply that. What does the board want to do with the financial allocation? And you'll be getting materials on that, and of course, it's something that, again, we've been talking about for well over a year and a half now. So thanks for that.
All right, excellent. Is that it for communications and commentary on?
Mhm.
All right. That brings us to our superintendent's report, number 7 on our agenda, I believe. Yes? Turn it over.
Yes. Well, first off, I'm going to start in a little bit of a somber way, and I'm just going to ask the room for a moment of silence in what occurred in Georgia last week. Thank you. No family, no educator, nobody should have to go through that. And the fact that it's repeated in this country as often as it is, the adults need to do something. So thank you for that. Opening week, wow, having kids and staff back in the buildings. Take a look at the pictures. Can we flip to the next one, please? Thank you. So it's just joy. I mean, check it out. You've got, look at that. Smiles everywhere. First day, first year as a bus driver. It's fantastic. Of course, we have our students that cook there, and kids just super happy to be back. We've had some shifts. We have a new principal, not new to us, but a new principal at Meads Mill, and Melissa Provo, and she had her first week, and I know one of you shared some nice comments with me about some things you saw from her, so that was cool. And now that I'm in my 3rd year here and getting to know people, know culture, build culture, and so on, I mean, just take a second and look at these. That's joy. And a lot of you know we have to celebrate Mike Rumbell, I believe, Rebecca, 51 or 50? 53rd? Okay, sorry, my eyes. I need to put my readers on or something. But the fact is that our schools, we have our union here tonight to be here for a contract, a vote with the Board of Education. And the fact of the matter is that our educators show up and beyond what they have to think about when they go into school, well beyond education. And a lot of it can be really hard. What I know is in over 600 building visits in the past 2 years, what I see is professionalism, love, care, regardless of the situation. And many of our staff, help kids in their roughest moments and families in their roughest moments. And what I've witnessed in the past 2 years is love, empathy, care. And I will sing it from the top of OVS. I'm not allowed to get on the roof anymore, apparently, but I will sing it from the top of OVS. The fact that the people on that screen, people in this room, people that you can't see, and many of you as parents know have touched your lives, teachers, coaches, administrators. Imagine a full week of that, just bathing in the joy of what we do in public education and public schools and advocating for these kids. So it was a great first week on that piece of it. And now I'd like Miss Rebecca Peck on the enrollment update. We have a snazzy graphic, Miss Peck. Well done. Thank you. Now I'm a visual learner, so this helps perfectly.
So I shared this information with you late Friday. The data, when I checked on it this morning, hasn't changed significantly. we'll probably see some more drops coming by the end of the week. Phone calls are starting to be made for students that have not shown up for their first day present. But we're in good shape. You know, we are to the positive more than any data that we looked at predicted. I know that you know this, so we're about 90 students above right now, where we were last year. And if you remember, I know you're looking at the chart that we have, and I try to keep that running total. You remember last year we lost 144 students. It surprised us. Again, the data did not predict that, and the data did not predict this. So we're riding a little bit of a roller coaster right now, but we're okay with that because this roller coaster is going up. You can see that we've got from our overall from last year, we've got about 90 more elementary age students, about 45 more. And I'm sorry if I'm saying the numbers wrong. It's my
The running theme.
About 45 more middle school students, and then we're down at the high school, but as you know, from our rollover vision later, right? Quite a few new enrollments for Northville. So, you know, I'd just like to shout out to all of the, what happened to my time? I'm so sorry for anybody that's at home. I know I talk loud, so. Thank you. Any of the real estate agents at home that are out there, thank you. Keep selling those houses and turning those over for families. We really appreciate that. As you can see, you know, we did do some leveling at Thornton Creek. We had some, and I know you're aware of this because right before school started, the weekend before, we got this big push of enrollments that week. By the end of that week, as Brian and I were looking at the data, you know, we needed to add a kindergarten and a fifth grade, which we did. I'll let Brian speak to the interviewing process because, you know, he's doing a great job as with the team. But fortunately, we have two veteran teachers that have been with us for many, many years in Northville that are bringing our littlest, our kindergarten learners up to speed as well as our fifth grade learners. So they are definitely in good hands as we build a transition plan for that. Other than that, we're sitting pretty.
Was 83 on the Alps, third grade, it was 88 last year?
Well, we had 3 sections.
Okay. I think it's just a watch point because I think there's gonna have to be thought about what happens when Ammerman isn't under construction. And,
Oh, indeed.
I mean, clearly,
Yeah.
I know that there were, I'm not saying that this wouldn't have been a higher number if people didn't have to elect to go to Silver Springs. So I know that some families elected not to do Alps because of that. So I think that's
And there is a
meaningful.
committee as well that Dr. Brock and will be co-chaired by Ms. Haynes that's rolling on that aspect of it as well. I visited Silver Spring several times in the past week and spoke with somebody there today at length about the transition, and sounds like things are going really well over there on that part. And then the Young Fives aspect that I was remiss in the beginning, and perhaps you can roll a little bit of that into your presentation on summer. But at Ridgewood and Winchester, that may have been one of the coolest moments, and I put it in the Friday update, was just, or didn't I? No, I put it in our ad council update. But just seeing those little kids like march down to their classroom and just knowing that for those kids who are younger, it's a good place for them to be. They weren't quite ready for kindergarten. Their parents made the call. And Dr. Brock, how many students do we have in our Young Fives program?
So we're right around 2 sections for both. I think we're hovering around 18 about in each class.
72?
Mm-hmm.
So like around 72 students whose families may have had to pay preschool fees if they wanted them to go to school. That was a value add there, obviously, and those students will be even more ready for kindergarten. So really, and Dr. Brock, you led that, so thank you. And I know you had a team there, but it was neat to see.
Break those numbers down again. How many sections, how many students that didn't add up to me?
We have 71 total in our Young Fives right now. And you can see, if you look at the 2 buildings that have Young Fives, so Ridgewood has 2 sections, and their average class size is 18. They have 36 kids.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I added another column in there.
I gotcha.
Snuck it in on ya.
Excellent. Is it also worth noting just I think it's great, plus 90 over last year, up at the elementary, up at middle school, down at the high school. Huge graduating class last year, right? I mean, that
Biggest in our history.
biggest in history, so just that little footnote, I guess. All right, thank you. Any questions about the enrollment update? Thank you for this.
Thank you, Ms. Peck. And this is something, my very first year I was here was in the summertime, started in July and went over to Moraine and got to see this in action. And this is something that our Office of Instruction, Office of Student Services, Transportation, and Ms. Brock can explain, or Dr. Brock can explain all of it. But our summer programming here is truly exceptional. That's not a false chest thump. That is knowing that we provide transportation, food, incredible instruction. Wait till you see, and a testament. And I'm going to say this with our UNICEF director in the room as well, and a couple gentlemen I see on occasion there out in the halls who are part of the EA. I think one of the stats that's amazing is the percentage of our own teachers who choose to be there to educate our kids in the summertime. That is, if you're not in the education business, that is a heck of a get and a heck of a tell on the culture of a community public school system. So Dr. Brock, I'm not sure if you want to come up to the podium or if you're comfortable right there.
Is my mic working?
There
I think
it
it's
is.
working. There it is. There it is.
So if you could tell us about the summer and the kind of great things, and this is, what year is this for the program?
Oh dear, let's see. So 2020 was online, and then we moved to in-person in 2021.
Fantastic.
So
And the level of service and I think really what helped us not drop off like other districts did from an academic standpoint. I think that this could be one of those things that you would look at and say this had to help, that they were engaged actively through the summer on that piece of it. So Dr. Brock.
yeah, and to your point, just having Northville teachers using our board adapted materials to, help summer grow in all of the core content areas. And certainly, Ms. Sandra, if you want to chime in, from the special services standpoint, this is certainly a partnership between multiple departments. So another year of successful summer programming. This year it was housed at Thornton Creek, which was new for us. Hillside, and then Northville High School, early childhood. And then we also had ASD Cook, and then Camp Invention at Thornton Creek. So Thornton Creek was very busy 1 week in July with summer programming, Camp Invention, and then ESL, which took place at Hillside. I see I have a clicker, so I'm going to go ahead. Okay, there we go. So this is kind of a breakdown of our programs. When we send out the sign up in March, it fills up very fast. It's a very popular program among our parents. I think that we also run a program where we are flexible. There are times where families sign up that first week that the sign up goes out, and then things happen and they're not able to make it. So we do also provide a wait list for parents that don't, meet that initial deadline for signing up for all the programs. As you can see, Thornton Creek was very busy. Hillside, Thornton Creek both have 2 sessions. Third bullet point down, the high school looks a little bit different. We have some in-seat classes. The majority of our classes are online through Michigan Virtual. This year, I think the exact number was right around 942. Cook is also very busy all summer servicing students. And then we have our ASD classrooms. ESL, I believe, was up a section this year at Hillside. We did 4 instead of 3. I think so. Thank you. And then Camp Invention, of course, who Pam Brucker, who's a former media specialist, parapro in Northville, she runs Camp Invention. So, excuse me, just some reflections. A huge piece of what is done during the summer, and frankly, what makes my summer so enjoyable is seeing all of the Northville staff there. Each year, more and more Northville paras, teachers come to facilitate the program and just knock it all out of the ballpark. So it's a really special piece that we have all of our staff there, almost all of our staff. Those who are not staff are people that started with us in 2020 or 2021, so they're returning teachers from other districts. Busing is a huge piece of this program. It allows parents just to, send their students on the bus. We do allow for parent pickup, but every year the percentage of kids who bus does increase. So thank you to Durham and all of our bus drivers that work all summer. We had 12 buses at Thornton Creek, and I think we had about 4 at Hillside. And last but not least, just those kind of little morale pieces that are really important. So bring in Kona Ice, bring in the field trips. We had Animal Magic. We also try to make it a lot of fun for our staff where we do raffles for Great Harvest, or we'll do Super Sub. And we actually went, and Dr. Weber subbed in kindergarten. I was able to sub in third grade, and it was a lot of fun just to, talk with the teachers and do recess duty and, talk with the kids. So the proof is in the pictures. So these are some pictures from our summer programming. As you can see, it was, again, well attended. Another large piece is that, the cell component that our social workers push into all classrooms. You'll see a lot of restorative practices happening during the summer program from our core teachers. And I think our, input from parent, even just when you're walking down the street or you see them at parent pickup, was very, very positive overall. So just a big thank you. Obviously to transportation, GRBS, we kept Jim busy at Thornton Creek, but definitely to Pat Scott, Winchester teacher who runs Thornton Creek and the high school, JD Keefe, who facilitates Hillside, and then Tanya Picken from the Office of Instruction, who honestly starts working on this in February and probably doesn't finish till like the first week of school. So huge thank you to Tanya Picken. And I think
what
that's
is
it.
the cost for our families to participate?
So it's totally free.
What?
Yeah. So this is, we've actually been asked by neighboring school districts, how do we facilitate this program? And it's
Hard
a lot
work,
of our,
hustle.
it's all of our grant funds from COVID. So I think it's probably one of the best uses of money that could have been done with that. And I think we're seeing the product of that.
Well, I want to, and hopefully the board's heard some positive feedback from neighbors or whatnot, and they can add to that. But I want to take a look at this team. You, Aaron, hello, looking at you too. Thank you. I mean, the fact that our families didn't have to expend money, the fact that our staff was there. Pat did a wonderful job. He's one of the first people I think I met here 3 years ago. And I can't believe you picked a kindergarten class for me out of the hat. I won't forget that. But the kids were lovely. And sincerely, just a wonderful opportunity. And, in the future, the hard thing is with the fall off in funding and monies, that's going to take a massive revisit, I think, from the whole team on what's really possible and not possible. But I'm darn proud of what you all have done and what we've done for the past few years. It's good for kids, period.
So I just want to add, first of all, I take zero credit for any of this. So I don't need to look bad. Dr. Brock is the workhorse here. She's the one who puts in timeless hours and is over there in dismissals and drop off and filling gaps and doing everything. So I don't think anyone knows how many hours and time and energy she puts into. Mrs. Pitkin is not the only one who starts in February with that. It's a lot of enrollment and managing because the bell rings here on June 13th, and the only people standing are Mrs. Pitkin and Dr. Brock. So it's them making sure this program gets off the ground, gets done, and the animal people get to the right buildings and all that stuff. So really thankful for that. And then also, not to end this on a low note, but just to be really abundantly clear, the money is gone. Okay, there is no more after school or summer school money. The COVID funding is gone that we've used since 2020. And so this is a very expensive program that we've been fortunate to run, but I don't know budget-wise, based on the information we have, how we could potentially continue to run this at the level that we have. It's just it's more than a $300,000 venture, which we've been happy to send the bill to the government for, but we can't do that anymore. So I just want to make sure I put an exclamation point on that so that expectations are set early.
Any questions, comments?
I would just say, I guess the three of us were here when this started. And I do think that I think we took care to make clear that this program was something that was COVID grant funded. And that this was something that, was around what Dr. Weber said, like learning loss or, rehabilitation of any issues around COVID. And so when January or February comes around, you guys, it's not a surprise to the community that this is something that, we don't run summer school. And I personally grew up going to school 9 on, 3 off, 9 weeks on, 3 weeks off. I'd had year-round school. So there's a lot to be said for that. But I think that a $300,000 cost is unsustainable, especially for particular the list is closed. That's not sharing the resources for everybody in the whole community. That's, the people who signed up first. So, but I don't want that grim note to take away from years of like really cool programming and hard work.
Yeah, agreed. I think I was trying to do the math as quickly as possible, but if we have 7,000 students and about 1,000 students are benefiting from summer school, like that's a significant number of our students. So we've been really fortunate to be able to provide that, that structure, that support, those intervention services. That's been a really beautiful thing from Northville.
How does it work with the high school classes? Because
So,
it's 900.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Before, during, and after. That can
So the high school, I don't want any parents to get a little freaked out here. The high school program is not going away. It is huge. It is facilitated through MBU. Our on-site classes in MBU is not going away. What is going away that does impact the high school is we have a COVID scholarship. So any student who failed a course is able to retake that course for free. So that piece could go away. We still offer some scholarships just through the revenue that we make. But the COVID scholarship piece of that will be ending.
And how did we fund it before we had COVID money?
We've never funded it. It's always been paid
It's
by the
always
parent.
paid by the
It's
government.
always, yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a majority of our students do credit forward, so they're earning credits in advance. They've always paid for those courses, and then our credit recovery kids have also paid the same price, but they're recovering. The last 3 years, we've used COVID funding to waive the cost for those credit recovery classes. Again, to try to make sure that any COVID damage was undone, to make sure students graduated on time. We won't have the funding to support that. But as Dr. Bach mentioned, we do sometimes make some small amount of revenue that we're able to use in advance for families who are in need, who need credit recovery, not credit forward, that their child can't take it unless we intervene.
I think it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for all the work that you put into it. There's so many ways that you could have gone when this money came to us, and I think you did a beautiful thing here that a lot of our community benefited from. I agree with Dr. Weber that it probably helped with learning loss, and I personally think any kind of educational opportunity put before our community, they're going to jump on it, right? That's the kind of great community that we're in. My only concern, and I know I've mentioned this many times, like every time we've talked about it, I'm like, how are we going to communicate to the parents? I would just say, if we can communicate early and often, I don't think we can over communicate it enough, what is happening here and why, because I do think it's going to be difficult to have to change back to where it was, especially if you had a younger child.
Right. In our registration materials this year, we put in that line so that there would be no surprises of those parents who are involved.
Yeah.
They certainly saw that. Now, it doesn't mean they'll remember and call and say, we're in summer school opening.
Yeah.
But we did put that disclaimer that this was the last year of COVID funding, and that likely would mean the end of these after school and summer school programs that have been offered.
Could we send it out district-wide? I think to that point, right? Like not just the families that enrolled this year, but really sending that message out to say, here's our summary. This is what we've done to bridge that gap for the COVID years.
Maybe we should tell the high school parents before conferences so they can make sure they don't have to pay for those kind of recoveries.
The only thing I would echo on what Ms. McIntyre just said is like, I feel like you kind of have to sign up for your summer stuff kind of at the beginning of fall. Like people are definitely doing that. And they're starting to plan their summers.
Yes.
And they plan it around like the weeks that can be gone, the weeks that can't be gone.
Right.
So like there will certainly be people in March who are like, yay, let's think about this. But there's, I don't know. I just am thinking about you guys not getting yelled at. You guys not being like, I didn't know.
Well, we've said it a lot for the past 2 years, and unfortunately, no matter how much we do communicate, and we'll go ahead and do a full court press on it. Hopefully the 6 of you will have our back. That you've heard it many times.
Yes, of course.
That this is one of those pieces that unfortunately is what it is.
I want to add one more, and I'll ask Ms. Sancho to share, just that we also were using that summer funding to provide some scholarships for our special ed population. So I want to also let them know that will be ending. And is there anything you want to add about it?
Yeah, so this year, this is also our third year, although every year we expanded it a bit and added more money. So this last year, we had about 220 parents that took advantage of an opportunity with COVID money. Any student with an IEP or 504, if they wanted to do a disability-related service or camp. So if you had a child that had difficulty with reading and had an IEP for that reason, you could get tutoring. We also opened it up to our multilingual population. And like I said, it was, we had 220 parents that took advantage of that. And there was a process and we reimbursed up to $1,000.
So we're going to be happy that it happened instead of sad that it's going away.
Oh,
But
Well
Nice
played, well
but
done.
it has been a great opportunity for us to provide some additional services for students.
I mean, I have some questions about where every dollar of the billions and billions that the feds poured down went, but I'm really proud. I do think you guys, like, there's very distinct, specific programs and opportunities that you guys gave kids. And it was visible. It wasn't just like, oh, we it was used.
yes.
I guess I'll just add, and maybe it's a grammar note. I hate to end on this as well, so maybe somebody pick it up after I say this, but.
I'll say something nice to cover up for you.
I mean, it's not just the 300, right? For the summer program, it's not just that money. There's other COVID money that is going away. I don't have the number at my fingertips or the order of magnitude, but this is something that we've thought and then are thinking a lot about. That money is going away, like it or not. So that includes, things that we've used for our summer program. So thank you for that.
And what I'd say as a public educator, and this is really germane as well to the 31 AA cut from the state legislature, when you direct and put dollars into the hands of good people like those to my left, good things happen for kids. And, we're sitting here in a district having the privilege of, 3 school resource officers. And we have so many pieces there. And I'm really proud that as a board of education and as a COLT team, being not only good stewards of money, that's one thing, that's fine, that should be an expectation, but actually how to maximize those dollars in a way that really get to, and the twists and turns these folks had to go through because of the 11T money, the restrictions on how to use it were really tight early, and then they changed at the end and tight again. So it really, the fact is that when we're given resources by whatever entity it is, I'm super proud of how this community uses them for their kids. Thanks for saying that. All right. Yeah. So I have Miss Santer, but I'm gonna say something. Brian, you're on deck, but come on up. Just I'm so excited for Beth to introduce you, but as I look at the picture in this fine brochure, you need to answer a question. Was Beth intentionally hiding in this picture, or did you cut out one of my people? I need to answer.
Well, I will tell you that there's no way that I would cut Beth out of it.
Oh, here we are. Perfect setup. So, Beth, if you could please introduce Brian, and this is truly germane to obviously next week's conversation, the conversation that we've been having, frankly, since my first interview. In my very first interview at Hillside, you asked me, and I forgot which one asked, I think it was Sarah, what do you see as the biggest challenge of public education in the coming 5 years? And my answer was, I don't believe we know yet because of COVID. And I would argue that Ms. McIntyre, when she was talking about the youth network, kind of delineated what is a real challenge that we're all still facing. And with that said, Beth, if you could please introduce Brian.
Absolutely. So Brian Galdis, if you are familiar with Wayne County, he's certainly not a stranger. He grew up in Redford and served as a teacher, a principal, and the superintendent of South Redford School District. So he definitely knows schools. And then he retired, and I guess he was bored. He wanted to do something. So he has personally been impacted by suicide. He'll probably share that story a little bit. And so he decided to help form the Suicide Prevention Coalition of Wayne County. He actually started that with St. Mary's before he retired. But then after he retired, it morphed and changed, and it included more districts. Northville's very proud and happy to be a part of it. And it's not just myself that represents Northville, it's also Diana Seamus from our high school. And so with that, I am pleased to introduce Brian Galdis.
Well, thank you, Beth. I appreciate that. As Beth said, I'm a stranger to school boards for sure. When I retired, I certainly thought, well, I don't have to go to another board meeting, right? Or, and now I answer to 9 school boards. I don't know which way my life is going here. I do enjoy it. I do enjoy. I enjoy board meetings, and it's always fun to see how other boards operate. And I think I said this last time, but you really have something special going here. I also should tell you that I have 2 proud graduates of Northville High School, both doing very well. And so I have a little bit of a vested interest in this community too. So I am the coordinator for the Suicide Prevention Coalition. And I'm actually employed by GrowthWorks, which does a lot of other mental health work, also mental wellness work. So together we're battling adolescent depression, suicide, and the stigma associated with mental health. And yes, I did lose a stepdaughter to suicide. She was an amazing young lady. She was stunningly beautiful. She was artistic. She had a 4.3 grade point average. She was on her way to a prestigious university. But she didn't see herself the same. She battled with depression, and so it is obviously a passion for me to do this work also. So Northville is one of 9 school districts in the coalition, and the whole idea behind this, and I'm going to give you some statistics. I gave them last year, but I'll tell you why I'm giving to you them again. But so the whole idea behind the coalition is we need to start moving the needle back. It's moving forward. We're seeing more suicides a year. We're seeing more attempts a year, not less, more. We went from the 3rd leading cause of death for that age group to the 2nd leading cause of death. And so we really need to do something different, and we need to come together. We need to break down silos, even with the health systems in our community. So Trinity Health is also on the coalition, as well as Corewell Health. So we have a steering team committee, and it's made up of 2 representatives from each of the 9 school districts, as well as the hospital systems. And your representatives are Beth Santer and Diana Seamus, both wonderful leaders, as you can imagine. Beth is a big-time leader and on the coalition. But I also have to say this about one of the greatest things that's happening with this coalition is there's a lot of special ed directors that are on this, and they've really gotten to know each other, and they're helping each other out. So we've had some tragedies that have happened, and school districts, Northville, Beth, has come to the aid of other school districts. You have to remember, when there is a tragedy, we had a couple of suicides in the coalition last year. Unfortunately, the social workers, the counselors, the special ed directors, they are usually personally connected to the young man and young woman who might have taken their life. And so can you imagine the teachers? I mean, they're not always in the position to help others. They need help themselves. So we have a lot of shared help amongst the group, and I'm really seeing that take forth. And kudos to Beth. One phone call to Beth, and she's got things mobilized. And so I hope you realize what a special person we have here. And Diane, also another a dynamic leader in the group. I mean, she brings such great ideas to us, and really helps us think things through. So, second leading cause of death, I've talked about that through the CDC. Now, this is you saw the slide last year. Every time I go anywhere, I use this slide because I think it brings home that this is everybody's issue. So if you look at the CDC research, and this compares exactly to a similar survey we do in Michigan, almost identical numbers. But so students have reported, these are high school students, have reported that they felt sad or hopeless for a period of 3 weeks. And that's in Michigan, 40% of our students across across the state. So if you extrapolate these numbers, I'm not saying that these are Northville numbers, it's an extrapolation to the number of students you have. So you have about 2,600 Northville high school students. That's 1,105 students have felt exceptionally sad or hopeless at some point in the last 12 months. 22% have considered suicide, just thought about it. So that would be 577 Northville high school students in the last 12 months. Students who have actually made a plan, 457 Northville students. Again, if you extrapolate those numbers to the 2,600 students that are in Northville. And this is the one that blows me away, and this is the one that keeps me in this work. 9% of students have made an attempt, high school students in the last 12 months. So if you look at 2,600 students, again, it's an extrapolation, and I'm not saying that you had 230, but it's reasonable to think that Northville numbers, there's no reason for me to think Northville numbers would be any different. This crosses race, it crosses socioeconomic standards. Sometimes a higher socioeconomic standard because of pressure, and that can sometimes lead to more. That's 230 Northville students who had not made a plan but made an attempt. And when I talk about this, some people say, well, come on, or their jaws drop. Talk to your high school counselors, talk to your high school social workers. They'll tell you that's not a surprise to them. That number there. So, it's a number that our society really needs to be looking at and really needs to. This is not acceptable. And that's why we're doing the work that we're doing. This is also something I think that's important. So Michigan did a survey. This is a number of years ago, but or did some research, and there's 40,000 students or teens who have a mental wellness diagnosis but aren't being treated. And the top 3 reasons are stigma, access, and affordability. And those are things that we need to address. And as a coalition, we are. So stigma is a huge one. We're working with, and you're going to hear about some of the programs we're working with, but we're trying to bust up stigma. Access to care. So we're also working with legislators. We've had legislators into our buildings. We've had them talk to whole mental health staffs for high schools and talk about what's happening. We brought them into a hospital. We brought them into Trinity Health, the old St. Mary's, and talked about what does it mean for kids when they come into a facility like an emergency room, and so they get to talk to nursing staff and also the doctors, the attending doctors, and then affordability. There's plenty of people who want to get help for their kids, but can't because they can't afford it, and so that's difficult also. So what have we been doing? So we have to make a difference, and we need to make a difference. So some of our focus, and you probably know about some of this, but we worked on a crisis screener. So a student in crisis is a family in crisis. I know that. And so we want to make the transition from a school crisis into maybe some mental wellness facilities and then back into school. That's important to us. And the first step is the crisis screener. So we're all talking the same language. So if they leave here and they go to Trinity Health is using the same screener. They don't have to keep asking the same questions and going over it and over and over because they're going to get the information from the schools. QPR training, we've trained over 5,500 school members, or employees, bus drivers, teachers, administrators, in suicide prevention screening. On data, we're working on data. You'd think collecting data would be easy. It's not, especially when you're talking about 9 different school districts and all of that. So we worked really hard this year on coming up with ways of collecting data without creating more work for anybody. Trying to work on that. And also, what is it? What data do we need to collect? What data don't we need to collect? What's going to help us move forward? So we're working on that. Research and recommendations. We have subcommittees that work for us, and then come back and report to the committees. And then coalition mutual support. Again, I talked about that, helping each other across districts. That has been huge and a huge bonus for us. I want to go back to the steering committee because it's set up specifically for specific people. Each district has 2 people, right? First person is someone who's boots on the ground. They work with kids every single day. That's important to us because we need that perspective. The other person is someone who reports directly to the superintendent, can talk to the superintendent on a daily basis. And that's important because we need decision makers. We need someone who can speak with some authority to how do we move forward. So we also do a lot of professional development. You can see that's listed on there. It's also in a document I'll talk about in a second. So moving forward, we have three real big goals this year. First one is going to be making that transition to and from outside mental health facilities. So you can imagine a young man or woman has an acute crisis. They go to, maybe they're going to have to be in inpatient for 3 weeks. So how do they get their schooling done? Because we don't want to add more pressure to them, right? And how do we help them, support them there? Then how do we support them coming back into the schools? A lot of times there's walls that go up and people aren't talking to each other. So we're going to work on coming up with some systematic ways for schools and healthcare workers also to be able to communicate and make that easier on families. Empowering student mental health through leadership programs. So GrowthWorks, their board thought this is important enough work that they are going to fund 3 years of peer-to-peer work in all high schools and all middle schools across the coalition. That's quite a few if you think of about 9 school districts. There's 3 here, obviously, in Northville. And you're already using the Be Nice program. That's one that we selected. And so GrowthWorks is going to pay for that program going forward for Northville, as well as all the other districts. So I'm excited about that. And the other piece is student voice. We're not going to move the needle back until we get student voice in it. We need student leadership. We need a steering team of students. And so we're going to build that this year. And again, I was able to get some grant funding for that too. So that won't cost any of the school districts anything. But I really want to put together a student leadership team that kind of looks like, feels like what the adults are doing with our adult steering team. And so I'm really excited about that work too. We've received some statewide recognition for the coalition for the work that we're doing. We also do a lot of legislative advocacy for schools and for hospitals too. And so there's 2 documents that I think RJ passed out. One is an annual report. It really has a lot of what I talked about today in here. We put that together to show you what we've done last year and what we're going to do moving forward. And this is just a brochure on I think it's the 50th election day. All schools are in professional development. We do an outstanding professional development opportunity for school-based mental health professionals. And so I'm really proud of this work. Last year it sold out at $350. We expect it's going to be $450 this year. And so that's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
If I could, Brian, could you go back to the slide that has the percentages, please? This one right here. Thank you. So, well, those are extrapolated numbers. Well, suicide completion is the unfortunate and tragic end for the person who's suffering. As you know, and other people in this room know, those who love those people who completed are never going to be the same. When I look at these numbers, and I think, yes, the focus is on the suicide or that completion aspect, but how many of our kids and how many of our adults are hurting to a point that's unacceptable? I look at these numbers, and what are we going to do? What are we in positions of power and authority going to do to help kids? And I'm grateful for you in doing that, and for Beth and Diana and our people who are committed to that. But I don't know how. Is there room here? Look at the slide. Like, those are our kids out that window in those neighborhoods. And in a community here that is educated, and has resources, we need to do everything we possibly can to help them. And for those adults who choose to say things about children, mock them, shame on you. Our kids are having a hard enough time right now, and they're trying to do the best they can. And the fact of the matter is, the people in this room, every one of you are here for a reason. I believe it in my heart. I want to do something to help. You should not have to go through your life and support your wife in something that I'm sure she thinks about every day. So thank you. Sincerely, thank you. And again, I'm just going to point up here. Anybody thinks that's acceptable? Anybody thinks that we're doing enough? That's all I have.
I'll just add to the point, and I really appreciate, what you're doing with this coalition and your comments, Dr. Weber, and this step. And you were really careful to say, this is an extrapolation, and look, you might think to yourself, oh, come on, Northville, really? I think back to, there was an article that really jarred me from the Washington Post. It was 2020 or so. Maybe actually, I think it was before that. I think it was in 2019, or it was before COVID. And it basically said that kids in high achieving districts like this one are now declared, or whatever the word is, at risk or high risk type of place, district. And so in my mind, yes, you have to put all those disclaimers around the word extrapolate, right? But I think that's a real number. That's pretty real because of some of the unique things that we have here. There is, I get that a gut reaction might be, oh, come on, Northville, the resources, we have it here. We have a very high achieving district that puts a tremendous amount of pressure on across the spectrum of kids. And so I think that is not so much an extrapolation. And don't kid yourself. You cannot kid yourself about that kind of number. 9%, I think, actually making attempt, that's shocking as well. That might be the most shocking one. I mean, I think parents and families probably don't even know, right? These are kids who have told, it's a statistic, but families probably don't even know that their kid has tried this. I'm sure folks, have stories more than I do, but
I think one of
anyway,
the things I really like about what you're doing is I really appreciate the Be Nice program, that it makes it accessible for kids to support each other, but also to let a grown-up know, right? I would imagine if we had a group of peer leaders here, they would tell us this is not an extrapolation, that it is a real number. That I would imagine they would tell us the numbers are actually higher than 10%, because parents learn this, but kids especially learn when their friends have attempted, whether it's a recent attempt or a past attempt. It is real. I think the other piece that I hope the coalition is also thinking about, the Surgeon General just came out also with his warning about parents are also really struggling with their own mental health. And I think that that's a really important piece, that our district has the opportunity to make some inroads. I don't know that we can turn the numbers back fast, but I think we have all heard parents have struggles, and how do we? A community public school district can only serve so many people, but certainly in my practice as a mental health counselor, I see that the kids come to us for care, and the beautiful thing that we can do, because we have a practice that also works with adults, is guess what? We get mom in there, we get dad in there, and we start to help the family heal and change, and prevent, future tragedies. We hope that's our mission.
Yeah, certainly our focus is on school-age children. That's our focus. But there are so many populations that are very much at risk. And to your point, this is my work, but I am a trained QPR trainer as well as Beth is, and I offered to Northville. In all the communities, I mean, you are special, but I'm offering it to the other communities too. I will come in and do training because I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting this morning in a different community. And I said the same thing. I'm willing to come into businesses, churches, and do training for free. The only cost would be you have to buy the booklet as part of the program. It's like $3 per person, whatever. But there's no charge for me to come in as a trainer. And I'm more than happy to come in and do that for the community also. It's part of, I believe it's part of my mission, my work. So I'm happy to do that.
I'd love to see how we could expand that with our PTAs, right? We have such an involved parent community. We are aligned, my friend. We are aligned. Yeah. I think that we have such resources in our community with very involved parents and families that some people would say, yes, sign me up. I want to be a part of that.
I'm sure a lot of people would sign up. Yes. Yeah.
So I would just like to maybe just say explicitly what your message was, which is that you're changing the conversation among kids and their teachers in schools. And a lot of times, the best way to get a message of health promotion or opportunity for improvement is from the kids to the parents. So as you say, we're breaking up stigma. People can report their friend who's struggling, out of love and caring and not feeling like they're outing a friend in ways that parents, they don't have that. There's a lot of really closed people who are, who are shut off because of the fear of stigma in this community at the parent level. But we're starting to open that up through the work in our schools and the culture that we're creating and the conversations that you're bringing. So I think that's a really fruitful pathway of change, is from the kids to go home and then open up a conversation with their parents. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
For having me again.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, thank
Really
you.
good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
So actually, hold on, before you leave, we have a little bit of something for you. And so I know I speak for the coalition that you can't actually be led unless you have a strong leader. So we appreciate that you're spending your retirement time with leading us. And we also believe that in Northville, we value our partners. And so when we have our partnerships, we want you to feel like you're at home. So we want you to be a symbolic. I know that you're a family Mustang, but we want you to be a personal Mustang. And so we got you a little something just to thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much, Brian. Really grateful for your work in so many ways. And it's difficult as public officials, no matter what we want to comment on or say about many of these things, some of these issues are deeply, deeply personal. And the aspect of sharing our own, familial lives or histories publicly, well, I don't have an issue with that. It's never my expectation for others to do the same. My piece here is that my life was very much filled with some of these struggles myself. And I was able to get the help that I needed and to get through there. Lindsay, what you said as well, I think that is one of those things that you don't go to a party and circle up and talk about really bad things that are happening in your life typically. So a lot of us hold that in. And, holding that in makes it hard. And I'm here just to say to people, like, it is far more prevalent, far more ubiquitous, unfortunately. It's one small part of who people are, but ignoring it and kind of whistling past it and not thinking it could happen to us or not my kid or not me are things that are exceptionally dangerous. And I'm really grateful to be in a place that we are going towards this. I'm grateful for people like Brian, who's raised his hand in that. So thank you for that. Ms. Peck.
Well, I guess I want to talk a little bit with the board about a potential retention bonus for non-affiliated groups. I know I've shared some in our weekly communications individually with you. But I just wanted to open this up for any questions, comments. I can give you the overview. The retention bonuses, we have collectively bargained groups. So we've got our NEA, which
We love them, they're here today.
We've got NASA, we have our paraprofessionals, we have our paraeducators. Those collectively bargain groups have all bargained retention bonuses into their contracts. We have non-affiliated groups that includes our office support personnel, so all of our admin assistants, technology, operations, food service, non-affiliated contracts like Sandra, myself included, Megan. We kind of come to the table before bargaining begins oftentimes. And out of this bargaining has come this thread of retention bonus. We love the idea of retention bonus because it sends the message financially with what we feel in our hearts every day. And that is we appreciate every employee that works here, and certainly we appreciate every employee that returns here. So what I'm suggesting to the Board of Education, and I will ask for next week at our Board of Education meeting, I'll ask you to approve a $1,000 retention bonus, which is on par with our other collectively bargained groups for those non-affiliated groups.
And this is something, thank you for that, by the way. We've done this for some number of years, right? We've kind of, could you talk a little bit about that? I mean,
Yeah, so, this kind of began during COVID. We were using COVID funding and whatnot, and whether it was through that collective bargaining process and the follow-up to that collective bargaining process, or sometimes during COVID when I know some of you probably remember that first year when we were all in shock and we had this monies available, we were able to give that thank you, a thank you bonus, thank you for continuing this work on behalf of our students and families. And we did that equally. We did that for every member of our school community because we're all in this together. So I hope I answered your question. Yeah. This is just something that we have kind of taken on as who we are as a district.
I would just add to that, and maybe this is a little bit where you're going, Lindsay, was that as a board, we've also tried to honor that some groups go first, and that's pretty common, I think, across industry, but I'm not an expert, but I think that it's, good practice to almost sort of like close the loop by looking and making sure we retain employee parity, so that we don't discourage first movers to come to the table and make contracts with us, but to let them know that if it really isn't sort of on par the way they've been treated versus another group, that we are good partners in that. So I think that, I don't know if that's what you're going to, but that ethos I think has been common from before COVID and some of our, contracts from before. It's just a matter of wanting to make sure, maybe food service is treated as similar to a paraprofessional, or certainly those first movers that Rebecca identified. So just, I think it's efficient and effective way to also manage labor.
So no action tonight. However, keep it on your mind at some point, not next week, and at the committee of the whole, I don't think, but it would be at some point. We'd have to vote on it, right? Or,
yeah, you would. I'd probably put it on consent agenda unless I heard differently going into next week, because I think we have a potential special call coming.
Right, I think we did that, yeah. We have that special call first, right, and then the committee of the whole after.
Yeah. I have been in enough meetings with Jim for enough years to know that the ethos I just talked about was something that was important to him. I don't see any objection to consent. Of course, someone could take it off, but I don't think, I don't want to speak for him, of course, but.
And I'll be sure to put this as a reminder in the Friday update.
Yeah. Okay.
Just so that all members can remember to think about this over the weekend.
Yeah.
Consent sounds right to me as well, but folks can,
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Much appreciated. Dr. Weber, is that it for you?
That was a robust superintendent's report. I think we're good on that one.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, then that will bring us our first of two opportunities for public comment tonight. I do not have any public commentary cards in front of me, but don't let that stop you. You know the rules, I think, judging by the folks in the audience tonight. Going once, going twice, that will...
I'm going there.
All right, Mr. Tabor.
Cards that don't stop. I mean, I feel like it's a little bit ahead of the schedule, but I did want to, well, sorry, first of all, Richard Tabor, President, Northville Education Association. My apologies. You know, I feel like I'm being a little bit ahead, but I wanted to thank not only the team here for all the time that we spent working over the summer, but especially thank my team as well for giving up their summer to work on the contract that you guys are going to be looking at in a few moments. So just wanted to give them their appreciation as well as your guys' team as well. So thank you guys for that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sticking to our time limits.
Didn't have to give them the
That's all you
budget.
had to say?
All right. Well,
Yeah.
great segue into number 9, I
Yes.
believe. Yes, I think. I'll turn it over to Ms. Meyer. Go
Yes,
ahead, take it away.
I am very glad to bring forward motion number 23, that the board ratify the tentative agreement entered into by and between the district and the Northville Education Association commencing August 24th, 2024 and expiring August 23rd, 2025 as presented.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. Meyer, supported by Ms. Stewart. Thank you for that. Any commentary, questions here? I obviously, like everyone, want to thank, we're very thankful that we have this agreement, first of all. Don't want to steal thunder in case there are, remarks that folks want to make, but definitely want to thank the teams, including in the back, Mr. Tabor and your team and the union and the teachers and our team up here in front. Probably many folks were involved in it, but Ms. Peck and Mr. Sumner, thank you so much. Any sort of remarks? I mean, I'll question, what does tentative mean, right? And you heard it in the motion. That's one question, but I don't want to steal anyone's thunder. Take it away.
Thanks, President Wilson. So, yes, tentative means that it's tentative until both parties have ratified. On August 29th, the NEA successfully ratified, their membership did ratify the tentative agreement. And so this evening it's being brought to the board for its consideration in ratifying this agreement. I know there were some media reports in mid-August that we had contentious negotiations. That at all was not the case. I think both parties would agree. We had a lot of conversation around that, but it was a collaborative process throughout. And echoing Richard's comments, I know I can speak on behalf of our team. We're grateful for Richard and Tom Boomer, the chief negotiator, and Grad Dalton, MEA Uniserv, as well as their entire team for just the collaborative process. It took us a little while to get there, but we got there as all negotiations typically have a landing spot. Sometimes they're quick, sometimes they take a little bit longer, but a lot of healthy dialogue this summer. And so just grateful for them. And want to make this recommendation to the board this evening to conduct a ratification vote to approve the NEA contract for 1 year.
Thank you so much for that. I know we had a summary memo that we've all had a chance probably to review, but any questions, comments from folks?
I think as a newer board member going through this for the first time, it's been really helpful to have, Miss Peck be able to sit down and do a negotiations 101 kind of class with me. And then I did really appreciate the summary. Taking a document that's 52 pages long with all the, scratch outs and notes and giving us the bullet point of, here's what changed, these are the bullet points. This is what you need to focus on. So I really appreciate that.
I thought something that did you want to go? I saw it out of corner of my eye. Go ahead.
I think I just wanted to acknowledge both sides of the table. It was unusual. We had some legislation that opened up some conversations that we haven't been able to have. I respect that there was listening on both sides and understanding what those new topics were, what the stakes were for both sides of the table. And I just know that's added another element this year, and I I'm very glad that both parties on both sides of the table were able to come to a soft landing, and that our teachers were sufficiently satisfied that they could vote in support of this agreement. So that's really important to us as a board. And it goes without saying that our teachers are one of the most important aspects of our district. And without them, we would be in a world of hurt. And so we really are very happy that this was approved by the teachers. So, and for the work that the leadership did, our leadership at the central office did to bring this to a good close. So thank you for that.
This will be my last contract that I'm part of. Not that I did much other than this vote and participating in our management team meetings. But I think I will just leave it at, I'm proud of the work that you all did together and where the district is being left. I'm really proud that the compensation that we're offering, I think it's the absolute most that I felt we could give and still make sure we really don't lay people off. That's the other edge. But trying to ensure that our teachers get as much pumped into their own personal bank accounts as they can from what we are working with has always been really meaningful to me. Putting aside that, there are other advancements in this contract that I'm really proud of the teams for working on. I'm not an expert in education, and I wasn't so excited about counting instructional minutes, where the actuality would be that people would be being, and this is one of the things we're voting on in the next item, the actuality would be that teachers were getting their own professional development. That's a limited thing that we're doing, but I really appreciated the idea of working on, how could we maybe change out half days and short-term trainings, an hour here or an hour there, to achieve something that's maybe more meaningful and to block time in ways that are more meaningful. So I think that, those are two of the key advancements that I went on my own journey around and thought a lot about. And I think that this district is going to have to compete on its the H of human relations, because we don't have as much money as other districts. That's just it. And I think this contract is a positive step in that direction. And I really want to lift up the teams for getting there and just impress upon you how important I think it is for our community that H in HR continues to be at the front, because that's what's going to differentiate us in an environment of competition for teachers.
Well, I don't have anything new to say, but I'm still going to use words. Dr. Weber said something at the beginning of the meeting when we took that moment of silence, for what happened in Georgia last week. And as a teacher, you go above and beyond just in the role that you have, and you do it in a very public way. I can go into the contract, which is forward-facing, and look up what people make. So you're out there in the public every day, and you're giving your all for our children, and it's so much appreciated. And that's why I'm so glad and thankful that both sides spent their summer doing this so that we could come to an agreement that, is in the best interest of our teachers, which I believe is also in the best interest of our students.
I agree. I would echo that, right? That from this side of the table, there were some moments that were like, okay, we're just going to keep trusting the process, right? Keep trusting the process. We value our teachers so much. Whether it is taking care of all of the mental health needs of students, obviously supporting their education, supporting each other through really difficult times, like the swatting incident I think of last year at Hillside. I think of how we're bouncing back from COVID and we're rocking it out right? That the way that kids are prepared when they leave Northville is because of the teachers. Also, our parents are super engaged, but I'm not in that classroom 180 days with my child. I can support from home, but really valuing the work, the efforts. So I appreciate the diligence, the diligent efforts, the patience, the collaborative nature of the work. I'm hoping to be one of the people that does continue on after, 3 of us roll off. So I appreciate that reminder of our ethos, right? As a board, that valuing teachers, also making sure that we can continue to be financially stable is really important, and showing with dollars the amount of appreciation and care and wanting to compensate our staff is really important.
I'd like to say just a quick thank you as I look in the back of the room there. Tom, I've been in your room a bunch. We've talked, and you've been part of the bargaining and negotiating team for years. Craig Dalton, UNISERV director, you and I have had a relationship for a number of years, and I've always found you to be fair. We don't always agree on everything, but it's okay, and that's the way it should be. Richard, you've had to carry the weight of expectations of the people you represent in a way that can sometimes be unfair. You know what the details are, and you've stayed that way. And I'm grateful for the 3 of you and for that team there. To my core team, I would ask you on a regular basis, how do you all stay so patient? And you would say to me, RJ, is part of it. This is negotiations. In that mature directness, though, I think it's good if we don't see eye to eye on everything. There needs to be some productive tension in those conversations. It's a shame that the news media on a slow news day came out to be here, I think, a couple days in a row to fan something that wasn't actually accurate or true. To the board, and Sarah, I really am grateful for what you said. I can't focus too much on Karen or I'll lose it. But the fact is, through these processes, there are things that might be really cognitively dissonant to the way we've always done them. That it doesn't make sense at first blush. Why would we, in first blush, why would we want quote unquote fewer days? The reality is that our team is continuing to build a system, and having days of vertical integration and horizontal integration is something that I am so confident that we're going to fly with. And let's never utter the 2-letter term again. At least for a while, and no disparaging to E.T. the movie. It was a great one back in the day. But the term E.T. is something in my rounds that I've heard, and the board has really approached that, and they've kept an open mind. And please know, it wasn't easy for some of them because there is a difference there, but I'm truly grateful that Rebecca and Brian and Mike, hard for me to say the name, educated all of us on how this could work and how it would be good. So incredibly grateful for everybody. And it's okay, again, mature directives, it's okay. We're not going to agree on everything. But I'm so happy that we kept it respectful. I'm sure you were frustrated with me on occasion. It's okay. Don't worry, I was frustrated with you. But it's good. It's good for our kids. So thank you to our partners. Also, and maybe this will be later, but also the other groups that have bargained throughout this. I mean, Rebecca, this started for your team. When? I mean, if we look at paras, we look at administrators and everything. I mean, you have all been crack-a-lackin', for sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you. One final question. Will this mean we have a full calendar soon? Right, Barbie?
When's it drop?
Tomorrow morning? All right.
It drops tomorrow morning like a Taylor
How's
Swift
that?
album.
It is. Yeah. There's some parents.
All right. Any other questions or points before we make this official? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Congratulations, we have a contract. Thank you to the teams. All right, that brings us to number 10 on our agenda. I'll turn it over to Dr. Campbell Boytel, please.
All right. I bring motion 24, that the board approve the professional development days, counting as instructional time, and the continued appointment of the district curriculum committee to serve as the professional development advisory committee for Northville Public Schools.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Dr. Campbell Voitel and supported by Ms. McIntyre, I heard. Any conversation, introduction?
Yeah, I'll just share that as we had done last year, required by law that if we are going to enter into utilizing professional development time as instructional hours for our pupil accounting manual, we need to have a governing body's approval of that, as well as an appointment of a group who will oversee the way in which that professional development is deployed. What we did last year was counting the November days as PD, which we used for restorative practice training, which Curriculum Council was in agreement on, serving as that professional development advisory group. So what we're asking again this year is an advancement of that based on the contract that you just approved. That would allow us to count additional PD days, namely specifically in October, January, and in April. That would then be counted towards instructional time, lowering the number of student days, and allowing us to use that time to count towards the 1,098 hours that's required by the state and the 180 days. So we'll be able to count each of those PD days as 6.62 hours, as well as counted as a day of instruction. In exchange, our teachers are given the opportunity to work together for full days rather than short periods. They're also able to work across buildings. We've already begun planning for October, which would allow our teachers to do some curriculum development planning and alignment across Meads and Hillside, between the middle and the high schools, between second grade teachers in the 6 buildings. That work is already underway as far as planning goes. And so, yes, it does mean less instructional time, but it does mean that our teachers are much more developed and much more advanced and have the opportunity to do the work that needs to be done to continually sharpen their skills and build the curriculum that they're working with. We're always advancing our curriculum and always pushing the way in which we use tools and techniques and technology to make our kids stronger, better. And so that's what we hope that this will allow us to do. ET was fine, although not everyone was a fan, but it was an hour and 45 minutes. Teachers couldn't work across buildings because the timing wouldn't allow it. By the time they drove there, they already lost a half an hour. And so this is going to give them 6 full hours a day to be able to do that kind of work. So we're excited to give them that opportunity. And with the exception of election day, which typically is pre-planned, the other days we'll be using that professional development advisory group to make plans for the year.
That just makes sense.
It does make sense.
When I think about, things that have come to me when people will say, well, why does second grade at Silver Springs do this and second grade at Ridgewood does this? Like, why aren't they collaborating and doing this? I mean, it might be an exaggeration, but it seems like this will really help align that and just communicate about, okay, what's working, what's not working, what are we trying? So it makes sense to me. So thank you.
So that's the horizontal articulation, but there's also the vertical articulation, the scaffolding that we are building into our math curriculum and our science curriculum and our STEM and English, ELA, the whole scaffolding continuity, I think, is also supported by having some dedicated time to talk across boundaries. So I see that that benefit.
If you think about even our algebra or geometry middle school teachers, they don't have planning time or time to work with the high school algebra and geometry teachers. So they oftentimes are finding themselves the only person teaching algebra in the entire building. Our foreign language teachers are in the same boat sometimes, unless they're shared between buildings. Even our STEAM teachers, as we develop this program, there's a lot of conversation that has to happen between the elementary to the middle and between the middle to eventually the high school. It's just across the board. There are nuances of people, whether it's special ed, like our ASD classrooms can now meet with each other, even though there's one here and one here and one there. They can all get together on a day like this to do some of that work together. So we think that it provides more positive, certainly, than negative. And really the only negative is that the students are not in school. But otherwise, we believe that there are a number of positives that this brings for our teachers.
I think other factors that I quickly mentioned, I think half days were in this conversation.
Yeah.
I just stopped sending my kids for half days because I am tired of hearing about the movie that they watched and having got their rear ends out the door is like, they're back again before I've come down off of that crap. And I just don't think that's a good use of a day for a kid. And I appreciate that. I know the board didn't tell you to do that, but like you knew that this is just not high quality school for kids. So I think eliminating some of that, and then also the quick point is like taking dribbles of training and putting it. It's just, I mean, who doesn't know that that's better? I mean, it's just. So again, like cutting. I think I already said I'd be happy with year-round school once in this meeting. Like, it wasn't my first, right? Like, but I think the third point that the public might not know is that this is very common in other districts.
Yes.
And also, it can't keep going. Like, there isn't going to be less and less and less school over time.
This is the threshold.
This is the threshold. Yeah. This is like the state only gives us a few days to play with. We're doing more in alignment with what other schools are doing. So I think those were the factors for the people who might have reservations, as I did, that, this wasn't an obvious call to me, but also one that I felt like I had the least to offer compared to the educational experts on Colt, compared to like, is this contract fancy lawyerly crap? That's where I can add value. And to me, I had to like take a step back and go, if you guys think this is better, it does seem like it to me. So that's the
To Trustee Prescott's point, I mean, all of us who are parents, half days are diabolical. The next piece is the team that we serve beside, and our academics team and our building leaders. Those days are going to be used so incredibly well. I walked into a meeting that Aaron was leading. Sandra, how many people did you guys have in the room? It was last week.
Just 11
coaches, folks that are laser focused on what are we going to do on those days to build systemic value throughout that chain. And as Trustee Prescott said, one of the things that we also helped our board see, as I shared with you, schedules from what we call peer districts, people very much like Northville in that demographic. One that we share a border with, one in the west side of the Stabley Forest Hills, and a third one, just to give you all a look at how district calendars look like that. And out of those that I shared with you, we were actually the outlier in another way. And so I think it's really important. I did see some comments out in the community by folks. And what I would say is when exceedingly high performing districts or organizations approach planning and time and focus in that way, it's not a surprise that they succeed and do well. It is just a different time for us. Karen alluded to this, but what our teachers and the principals and assistant superintendents and directors and executive directors are expected to produce. When I started a number of 1 or 2 years ago in education, it was far less. And so that's also that piece of time, and how do we use that time? And I'll leave with this, and I don't know if it was a true story or not, but I love it. And that idea of Abraham Lincoln in some guy challenging him to cut down a tree with an axe, and the guy starts whacking, doesn't stop. Lincoln's sitting there and he's sharpening his axe, and the guy's like, I'm going to smoke this guy. And Lincoln's sitting there thinking, this guy's going to get tired and his axe is going to wear out shortly. So he kept that axe sharp, he kept it focused, and he won the race. And the idea is we all need to make sure that we build time into our lives professionally and personally to get a little bit better, and to do so in a way that we are at our best. And that's not after school. It's not a half day of instruction, and so on. So
I do want to just make sure I set the expectations when the calendar comes tomorrow. The only half days that are still there are finals. They are still there. Parent-teacher conferences.
Sure.
So
Yes,
those half days do exist, but we were able to eliminate like the half day before Thanksgiving or the half day before Memorial Day by replacing them with these times. We don't have kind of intermittent half days, but there will be for parent conferences, as there has always been, and there will be for finals. So I don't want anybody to see it tomorrow like, I thought they said there were no more half days. There are half days for those purposes.
And really, Aaron, you open the door there, and something I'd like the board to chew on, and I'll just say it publicly, is the fact that final exams at the high school level take a tremendous amount of time, instructional time, and so on. And the idea of something I'd like us to look at in the future is, our final exam schedule is really the best use of our time. If we're assessing our kids well and they're learning well, we should know exactly how they're doing before they roll into an assessment for 20% of their grade. Now, AP and IB is very different, and Dr. Brock or Aaron could speak to that there is a final structure that you would get there. But for many of our classes, I would challenge any educator to think, is it really worth investing a week of half days to sit an assessment, especially if indeed If you're preparing for assessments, many of our kids take AP and IB classes anyway. They get that experience. But the fact that we invest that much of our time in a building with 2,500 kids in it for finals that may or may not be useful is just, I'm going to put that in the room. Nothing to debate or talk about tonight. I think you probably know where I'm leaning on that one. In my former job as an assistant superintendent, we got rid of final exams about 7 years ago. Just the idea of the time sink that we put into it, and Aaron can explain that better than I can, I'm sure. But the amount of time that we put into that is just extraordinary. So
It's consistent with our interest in authentic assessments in the classroom.
All right, I just also want to thank, before we vote on this, thank Mr. Bothman. Your master, I'm always impressed by your sort of mastery, wizardry, out-of-boxery, whatever it is around instruction. I really appreciate that. Should we vote on this? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thank you so much for the great insight and commentary and work on that. That brings us to our second of two opportunities for public comment. I do not have any green cards up here. Don't let me stop you.
I'm not getting it.
All right. All right. Going once, going twice. That will close our second of two opportunities for public comment tonight and bring us to number 12, questions, comments from board members. Do we have any?
Does anyone else have any?
I have one, but
Okay, so I just wanted to let everyone know that as part of the Wayne County Association of School Boards, they're looking at their legislative action items for the next session, right? So you're not going to wait until it actually starts. So they're going to be discussing that on October 10th at 7 p.m. So it's kind of like a brainstorming session to just kind of get ideas or read on what school board members are thinking might be topics that they want to bring forward to our legislators. So I just want to let everyone know about that. And then I did have a question regarding something that was in the Friday update regarding enforced parking restrictions. And I was wondering if that is going to happen, how would that be communicated? I'm just thinking of a parent who's like, I'm just going to run in here real quick and blah, blah, blah.
So what I think we should do, and this is what our plan is once we finalize the communication to the city, which we're working on right now, we would ask the principals to put that in their Friday updates for the next couple of weeks, just letting them know that, the city of Northville will be enforcing parking regulations within our parking lots on our school properties. And it's really just the signage, where it says no parking, you really can't park there. It's for safety reasons. So
I'm not disagreeing with
yeah,
you.
but that is our
I
plan.
just know
Yep.
as a parent who's, wants to quickly get something done or whatever, you're running a million places, you think, I understand we need to make sure our schools are safe in every possible way, but I just want to make sure people get a heads up, get an opportunity to maybe avoid some issues.
That's right. We're with you.
Yeah.
I would imagine with our SRO visiting more often and being around, I'm sure there's a raised awareness to some of these things that really are safety hazards.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
about that.
No, you don't think?
I don't know if it's raised awareness.
Maybe the awareness has always been there.
yeah, I was out front of Hillside with Officer Lindbergh from the city, and he's amazing. And the Ammerman people love him. I'm like, so are people they're ready to go? And it's like, no. So still some education on our part, right? But hopefully not the education of a tow truck or an expensive ticket.
Yes.
So.
The other question I wanted to ask, which I almost don't want to know the answer to, because I think I know it, 6 in Sheldon. Does that begin now?
So I was with Mark Abbo this morning in a meeting, and I said, "Is it really happening?" He's like, they finally started it. It's rolling."
Yeah.
So yes, mercifully, and what Miss Meyer is speaking to is if you've ever had the resplendent joy of being caught at that intersection when the high school gets out. I mean, maybe what is it?
In the
It's like a one-car moment, basically. a car gets out, and if you're in line, you're there for, I mean, you live right down the street, but how many minutes are you?
Fine. And there is no break, and it's going to be,
Yeah, I don't know.
Life-changing.
It's-
So good eye.
I guess what
Yeah.
I would
Well, I
say.
was honestly hoping to put blinders on and be in denial about
I
it.
guess
but
what I
thought
would
should
say
maybe
is
bring
like,
it up.
the communicate, to save problems, and this isn't probably lost on any of you, you might want to put out a thing to all the high school people, because I'm telling you, they're relying on being able to get there, and they will not be able to get there. It is a line of cars from about 6:50 until 7:15, and it's going to be a little bit, I mean, this isn't the end of the world. We're all grown up.
Yeah,
People can
well,
function.
there's a lot of teenagers
like,
driving.
But teenagers may be driving, and like, I guess it's just like one of these, like, maybe you haven't seen, they're like hovering and bringing in equipment and like grading and all this
a
shit.
lot.
It
It's gonna be.
I hadn't realized they were gonna have to widen it and blah,
That's what I
blah,
was,
blah.
a lot of construction
It's
involved.
gonna be terrible.
In the
So-
short term.
I mean, the
But
end result
better.
is gonna be good. The end result is
I'm so
gonna be
glad
good,
they're doing
but-
it. I'm not saying that. It's
Right.
just, I think
No, I
people better
agree.
be told, like,
Yeah.
like, you know, I mean, the mayor is doing like, and then they're gonna do this, and then they're gonna do that with
Yeah.
this whole thing. And I'm not saying it's not out there, because maybe I missed it, but like, heads up to people, like, this is when the rubber's gonna hit the road, might be useful.
I think they did put something out
They
when
did.
it was supposed to
Right,
happen
in July.
in July. And
Yeah.
then it's
Yeah,
been like.
That's what Mark
you
Abbo
know.
said, is it should have started in July. And Aaron,
Yeah.
be prepared, because you might be approached by some high school students who think it's a great idea to just not have high school for a couple weeks. So, on a pupil accounting aspect, you might be on the lookout for that. I know you have a senior at home who might be working you on that one,
We'll
so.
lose 70% of the attendance if we don't get paid.
We definitely want the 78%.
Okay.
I just, are you?
No, I'm done. That
Okay.
was it.
I just wanted to, I know there's been a lot of,
Oh, yes, thank you.
notice about this, but also there are some upcoming school board candidate forums. And so actually this Thursday night at 7 p.m. here in this room is the League of Women Voters is holding a school board candidate forum. And then the PTA forum is scheduled for September 25th at 7 p.m. here in this room. And then also the City of Northville Mayoral Town Hall, where each candidate will have an opportunity to introduce themselves, is October 2nd at 7 p.m. And that's at Northville Township offices. So.
Can you say the date of the League of Women? But I can look
It's
that
the
up.
12th. It's this Thursday
At 7, right?
at 7 here.
Here.
And the
in this room.
PTA one is
Did you
here as well.
capture
If any of this was going to be live streamed.
I
Or Zoom.
think the League of Women Voters, they record it and then put it
on
out a
YouTube.
little bit later.
Okay.
The PTA forum, I believe, is something similar.
Mhm.
They're still working out details about submitting questions and all of that kind of
Okay.
stuff, so.
All right.
I think, is the mayoral one live streamed though? That
That
one
one
might
is
be
live
mayor-
streamed
That one
also.
might be live streamed. The
Yeah.
other two probably will be via recording.
Recorded
And there's
then
no
released.
questions at that event.
No.
It's
No.
Strictly a time
It was
to
just
speak
and-
to your position.
it was a very firm 3 minutes last time,
Was it
right? Or
three?
2
Yeah.
minutes or
It's
3
very
minutes.
short.
It was
It's
very,
very short.
very, very short. So just a couple of
Yeah,
those
thank you for those
updates.
reminders.
Yeah.
I wanted to say, I went to a couple of elementary PTA meetings last week, and it was so cool to see the different buildings and what the culture is like. But one of the things that stood out to me from a couple of the buildings is that they're really working to have some like student focus groups, even at the elementary level, that's kind of above and beyond the Leader in Me stuff. So excited to see kind of what they do with student voice and how they start to bring that forward through kids and PTA, and excited to see that.
Every building is unique. We appreciate them all for their uniqueness. But there were questions. from the floor for the SRO, if the SRO was part of the procedure or part of the agenda for the evening. It did precipitate a question, and that response came to the BOE email, which was the availability of free gun locks. And it has been confirmed both by the city and the township that free gun locks are available to citizens, and the police are very happy to show you how to use them accurately. But also there was reinforcement for parents to ask the question when they're making a play date about, are there guns accessible to kids, and if so, are they locked? And that isn't, and that's just due diligence, and not to, to inflame anybody or to create negative feelings, but just due diligence on the part of parents. So those were a couple of conversations that we had too. So we're working in all ways that we can to keep kids safe. There's no doubt about that.
Right. And we do have the resolution that our board entered into, a resolution in support of gun safety and safe gun storage. And we have information on our website about the Be Smart program, which is, safe gun storage, and some of the information that you can access on how to have those conversations. So that's also on the NPS website.
Well, thank you for that. And I think you and Karen were kind of leaders in that regard. You were part of Moms.
Well, it came through our subcommittee, the policy, HR policy subcommittee. Okay. So we reviewed that before we brought the resolution to the board.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. It's been a little over a year since we talked about it, so it's nice to refresh all of that. So
I would love to hear from, trickling up through the staff or whatnot, how if enforcing the away for the day has been a burden for K-8 teachers, or how, and so that's the hard column, that's the cost column, and then any, like if, are they seeing benefits? Just eventually, it doesn't have to be anytime soon. But
yeah, I think in all the buildings last week, and I think today did the news. Last week I was on 5 media outlets, and I think the important thing is from a standpoint of working in partnership with our parents, and the fact that giving a standardized approach to this throughout our district hopefully will make it easier on parents as well, frankly, to have those conversations with their kids, like these are the rules, if you will. But we can certainly provide an update on that maybe in a couple of weeks after we've been in school for a month or so.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
My third grader came home and knew the rule. So I can, because she has a watch. I didn't buy it. But anyway, so I looked at her and I said, you're not supposed to have that.
Nice way to throw your family into the house. Really?
Someone did though.
Really?
Someone.
An adult did. Unbelievable.
Oh, maybe she found it. It's on the playground.
That's right. Yeah. But she knew she had to leave it in her backpack in the hallway. So I thought, okay, thank God. I didn't have to wrench it off your arm.
My client takes the fifth.
Yeah.
I was hearing.
I think you've been advised to stop speaking by your attorney to your left. Listen.
I was hearing good feedback from my middle schooler that he was like, people are talking and there's like happy sounds in the lunchroom. And so that's just anecdotal from my one kid, but others might have heard other
I
things.
got a whole different story from my daughter talking to me about, why did you vote for this?
Oh.
It's
under Barrister Prescott's number.
Again, my client takes the fifth.
The only thing I wanted to say, and I don't want to beleaguer the point, but for whatever reason, it really struck me tonight hearing your all your comments, especially on the NEA agreement and the PD days and the IT time and all that. I just find your comments to be so good. I mean, you're so good at this, and you all bring such great insights. I get a kick out of hearing it. It's kind of why there's boards of 7 people, right? Different minds, different experiences. I always appreciate Sarah and Jim, as this goes for Jim as well, the historical perspective, right? And where we've been and what we've seen and why some of these things are so important. And I just think that's so great. Education, your comments around PD time and the scaffolding. I'm gonna have to go back and figure out what you were talking about. But I thought it was so great, and you're always so great on mental health and going back to that. And you guys sort of like the heart and soul of parents and teachers. You know, I just think I get such a kick out of it, and I just wanted to say for whatever reason it struck me. And so I thank you for that. Any other questions on comments from board members? All
And
right.
thanks for that, President Wilson. I'll say another piece of during election season, we hear a lot about the term transparency. And what I'll say is I would challenge anybody to find a Board of Education that meets more often for the amount of hours that you do. And so part of a conversation around transparency is these are all public meetings. Anybody can come, anybody can talk to us, anybody can ask us a question. We're on record, we're on television. So again, I would challenge anybody concerned about that aspect. There are things we can do to get better, and we are and will. Putting our reports on board books, so you can go back, something that was presented 2 years ago, and take a look at it. But as far as the core tenet of representative democracy and transparency, you know, we're in a time, in a season, an election season, where people will throw words around without truly understanding what they're saying or meaning. And I think maybe I'm sticking up for the seven of you a little bit, in the sense that this is a public venue. You sit here, you listen, you talk, you present, you answer questions, and so on. So thanks for your transparency for this community.
I appreciate you saying that. I was thinking too, I was doing some math and I was thinking, so we have about 4 board meetings a month. We've had subcommittee meetings. We have 3 active subcommittees right now, plus District Curriculum Council. All of those agendas are forward facing. That I think, to that point, we have a lot of meetings and we do a lot of work, and it is all available for the public to come join, listen. You know, some meetings are not televised like this one is, but our committee meetings are open. So,
yeah.
Accountability.
So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good meeting tonight. It's not over yet. That brings us to number 13, I believe, our closed session, and I will hand it over to our Vice President, Ms. McIntyre.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll say this really quickly. I'd like to bring forth motion 25 that the board convene in closed session pursuant to Public Act 267 MCL 15.268E to discuss pending litigation in the matter of Keebler versus Northville Public Schools as presented. Support.
All right. So we have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Ms. Stewart to go into closed session. This will require a roll call vote. For folks here in the audience, we may be coming back for additional substantive work. We'll see. But take us away with the roll call, please.
All right. Mazurik is absent. Meyer.
Yes.
Stewart, yes. Wilson,
Yes.
Prescott.
Yes.
Campbell Boytel,
Yes.
McIntyre.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. The motion passes. We will be moving to closed session. Like I said, we're coming back to at least formally adjourn, but possibly for additional work before we adjourn.
Yeah, that's good.
He didn't turn us back on. Now we're on.
All right, so it's 9:35 and we are back in our regular meeting. Number 14 on our agenda, added agenda items. We do have one. I'll turn it over to Ms. McIntyre to present, please.
Okay, I'd like to bring forth motion 26, that the board grant the administration the authority to resolve the pending litigation as discussed.
Support.
All right, so we have a motion properly presented by Ms. McIntyre and supported by Dr. Campbell-Voitel. Let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you so much for that. Any other added agenda items, Ms. Irving? Anyone else? All right. That means that's the end of our meeting, and we will adjourn at 9:36. Thank you so much. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good meeting.
Well.